Okay, I'm playing as black, and white opens with the king's pawn, and I bring out a pawn, and his bishop, my knight, his knight. I get the pawn out, and another pawn, and then my knight is attacking his pawn, but he protects it with a pawn of his own. And at this point, I want to get I want a castle, so I want to get my black square bishop out of the way into the game, but before I do that, I actually want to move my queen's pawn into the game so that it's not locked behind anything. So I bring out my queen's pawn, he takes, I take, he brings out the bishop. Now I'm going to bring my knight over, and I'm actually attacking the pawn next to the rook there with a threat of check. But he castles. So I bring out my bishop, he brings his rook across, I castle, brings his knight out, and here I make a mistake. My pawn in the middle of the board is protected by two pieces, but the move I make here, I actually move my knight, and it's no longer protecting that pawn, and he takes the pawn. So I've made a mistake in giving away a pawn there. Now this is where the attack comes. I've got two bishops and two knights and a queen all looking at the king's side of the board there. I'm not quite ready. I wanted to get my rooks more into the game. I wanted to, do a few things like that. But if you look at his pieces, he's got pieces like on the queen side of the board that aren't really ready to defend. The king's side's quite naked, so he doesn't have a lot of control over there. So I took his knight, and he comes down with the rook, and his black square bishop is threatening to take my knight, and his rook's threatening to take my pawn, and my knights are very unprotected. They look very naked hanging out there. However, I can check his king with either of my two knights, and if I do so, he might capture them back immediately, maybe with the pawns in front of the king or something. But I realised if he did that, then I could sort of sneak in with my queen and start checking him and maybe get something out of it. I could also move my bishop into the far corner where his king is, and again, I mean, he can just take it with a pawn, but then it opens his king up for checks. So I just looked at all the possible options, and I came up with one that I thought was going to work. So this is what happened. So I moved the queen up, and protecting my knight, and maybe he should probably just take the knight with his bishop anyway, but he makes the move that I was hoping he would make. So this move here, I think this is pretty much where the game comes to an end for him. So yeah, so this allows me to move my queen forward onto the white diagonal, and I'm really cutting off the king's abilities here now. He's got to do something, otherwise I can checkmate him on the next move. So yeah, but that's all right. He's going to take the knight. He was always going to take the knight. Now what I want to do is move my other knight in, but his queen is covering all of those squares. So the bishop comes forward, nicely protected by the queen, and I'm kicking his queen away. So I just want his queen to move off that diagonal, and from there I can move my knight in. So he probably doesn't see this coming, so he moves his queen across. He's attacking my queen. There's no immediate checkmate for me, so maybe he thinks he's safe. It doesn't look like my queen can jump in yet, but then there comes the knight, and it's all over. So he has to move the king, only one square. He moves into the corner, and then checkmate. And one of the reasons this worked out is because some of his pieces are still stuck on the wrong side of the board. So I had a lot of pieces. All my pieces came into it there, all the ones that were ready, and it was just enough to trap him in. So there it is.